I'm not sure if you've ever heard the name Elizabeth Short before, but this story is one of the most famous ones in true crime history. It's about a young woman whose body was found cut in half, and, unbelievably, there wasn't a single drop of blood on her. Her remains were left on the side of the road, with the upper and lower halves placed apart from each other. So yeah, this case is pretty serious, not for the faint of heart. Before we get into it, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Alright, get your mind into cosmic mode, because in this universe, nothing's going to distract you from watching this story. Today, we're talking about Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia. She was born in July 1924, in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. Her parents were Cleo and Phoebe Short. Not much is known about her early childhood, but her parents eventually split up, and her father moved to Vallejo, California. Elizabeth stayed in Massachusetts with her mother. As she grew up, she became known as a very beautiful young woman, slim figure, dark brown-black hair, bright green eyes, and she always wore a flower in her hair. By the time she turned 18, she had developed a bit of a wild side. She felt like she didn't really belong in Massachusetts, like she was meant for something bigger than small-town life. But that little town couldn't give her what she wanted. Meanwhile, her father, Cleo, was living out in Vallejo, not far from San Francisco. They kept in touch occasionally, and one day he even told her, "Why don't you come live with me?" Cleo worked at a Navy shipyard. He told Elizabeth, "If you live with me, you won't have to pay rent, just keep the house clean and cook meals." Elizabeth agreed. Cleo even sent her $800 so she could move. And really, who wouldn't? It was California, the land of dreams. Elizabeth was excited. A new life, new opportunities, a fresh start. She left Massachusetts behind and started over. But her living situation with her dad didn't last long, only about 3 weeks. She stayed out late, didn't cook or clean like they'd agreed, and her father got fed up. "You know what," he said, "it's better if you move out." So Elizabeth packed her things and left. That was the last time her father ever saw her. Elizabeth didn't want to go back to Massachusetts. She was in California now, and she was determined to make something of it. She started looking for work and soon met a man named Camp Cook, who worked at a military base. There was a store there that sold food, clothes, and other supplies. That's where Elizabeth got a job. She worked there for about 9 months before deciding to move again, this time to sunny San Diego. She didn't really have a plan, no stable job, no place to stay, but she went anyway. In San Diego, she met a woman named Dorothy. Dorothy worked at a theater and usually came home late at night. One evening, they got to talking, and Elizabeth told her she didn't have anywhere to go. Dorothy felt bad for her and offered to let her stay at her place for a while. Elizabeth agreed, saying, "Don't worry, I won't stay long." She lived with Dorothy from December 1946 until January 1947, about a month. Then one day she told Dorothy she was leaving with a man named Red, and that was the last time anyone saw her alive. It was the morning of January 15, 1947. That day, a call came into the Los Angeles Police Department. Someone had reported what looked like a body. When officers arrived at the scene, what they found left them stunned. There, lying on the grass just a little off the sidewalk, was the naked body of a woman, cut cleanly in half. It wasn't a rough cut, it was precise. There were no identification documents found, so at first, the police referred to her as Jane Doe. But soon, they confirmed it was Elizabeth Short. Her body had been cut in half just above the navel, the upper and lower parts completely separated. There was also a cut on her right breast. Police noticed another strange detail: the toenails on only her big toes were painted red. It seemed deliberate. Maybe Elizabeth had done it herself. When wearing open-toed shoes, only the big toes would show, so it might have been for style. But it could also have been a clue, something the killer intentionally did. There were deep gashes on her forehead, and cross-shaped cuts around her abdomen and private area. Even stranger, there were marks on her body resembling a tic-tac-toe board, as if someone had played the game on her skin. And perhaps the most infamous detail of all, Her mouth had been slashed from both corners, about 3 inches wide, giving her a grotesque, fake smile. When police examined the body, they discovered that Elizabeth had been strangled to death. There were clear marks around her neck showing she'd been choked. Her wrists and ankles showed signs of being tied, the kind of marks you'd get from ropes or maybe a necktie. It was obvious she had been restrained and tortured. Investigators also noticed something else. From the way her body looked, they determined she'd been lying face down for quite some time after she died. They could tell this from the discoloration of her skin. After death, blood settles at the lowest point of the body. So if someone dies face down, the blood pools on the front, turning the skin a purplish-brown color. But the most shocking part? There was no blood anywhere. None. Not on her body, not on the grass, not even a drop around the crime scene. It was completely clean. That meant one thing: Elizabeth had been killed somewhere else, and her body was carefully brought and placed there afterward. There were no drag marks, no signs of a struggle, nothing. Her body was completely drained of blood. It was terrifying. The police had no idea where to start. This was a brutal, mysterious murder, the kind of case that instantly grabs national attention. So, they decided to track down the woman who had called 911. Maybe she had seen something, or remembered some small detail that could help. About a week later, they found her. Her name was Miss Berzinger. She told police that on that morning, she had been walking with her young daughter, heading toward a shoe store. As they walked along the sidewalk, something on the grass caught her eye. At first, she thought it was a mannequin, the skin was so pale it didn't look real. But as she looked closer, she realized it was real, it was a human body. Horrified, she grabbed her daughter and ran to the nearest house to call the police. Miss Berzinger said she never went back to the scene. She was too afraid that her little girl might see something so gruesome. Unfortunately, her statement didn't give investigators much to work with. Next, police checked for fingerprints. They took prints from the body and ran them through the system. Finally, they got a match: Elizabeth Short. Detectives then located her father, Cleo, and broke the news to him. It's every parent's worst nightmare: your child has been murdered, her body mutilated. Just hearing those words would destroy anyone. But Cleo's reaction stunned them. He seemed tired, cold, detached. He simply said, "I don't want to talk about it," and refused to go to the coroner's office to identify her body. It was as if he didn't care. Police then reached out to Elizabeth's mother, who was still living in Massachusetts. As soon as she heard the news, she flew to Los Angeles right away. As the investigation continued, detectives found Dorothy, the woman Elizabeth had been staying with. Dorothy told them everything she knew, that she last saw Elizabeth on January 15th, when she left with a man named Red. Now police finally had a lead. Based on Dorothy's statement, they started searching for this man, a red-haired guy named Red, and the car he had been driving. Their search took them to motels around the San Diego area. Eventually, they found records at a motel in Pacific Beach. A guest had checked in on December 19th, driving a 1939 Studebaker. That detail immediately caught their attention. The name on the registration? Robert Manley. Detectives tracked him down, got his photograph, and showed it to Dorothy. Without hesitation, she said, "Yes, that's him. He's the one who picked Elizabeth up that morning." The police were thrilled. Finally, a real lead. They started digging into Robert's background. He was married, worked as a sales engineer, and lived in South Beach, California. Records showed that just 2 days after the murder, on January 17th, he had driven to San Francisco with a friend named Harry. Police went to Robert's house first, but no one was there. Then they went to Harry's place, also empty. But in the garage, they found Robert's 1939 Studebaker parked inside. Detectives waited outside Harry's house for 2 nights. Finally, on January 19th, both men returned home. Robert was arrested on the spot. His car was searched top to bottom, and he was brought in for questioning. He took 2 polygraph tests, and passed both. There was no evidence tying him to the murder. So, eventually, police had to let him go. Meanwhile, the case exploded nationwide. A beautiful young woman, found brutally murdered and cut in half. It was the kind of story the media couldn't resist. Newspapers called her the Black Dahlia, and the name stuck. Newspapers started calling Elizabeth the Black Dahlia. The name fit her perfectly, because of her jet black hair, the flowers she always wore in it, and her fondness for wearing black lingerie. For the press, this wasn't just a murder. They turned it into something glamorous, even sensual. Meanwhile, the public was in a panic. People were asking, will they ever catch the killer? Why hasn't this case been solved? A month passed, and police still had no suspects. Tension grew. The whole city began to feel unsafe. Then, one by one, people started coming forward claiming, I'm the one who killed her. But none of them had any proof, they were just attention seekers. Back then, this case was the biggest news in the country, so, in today's terms, they were chasing clout. Around that time, the Los Angeles Police Department began receiving mysterious letters from an unknown sender. The writer claimed to be the real killer. With the letters, he sent some of Elizabeth's personal belongings, including her address book. Elizabeth always carried that little notebook with her. But this time, many of the pages had been torn out. Police immediately suspected that those missing pages might have contained the killer's name or address. By February 5, 1947, two men were arrested, one named Robert and another named Dan. Robert was questioned again, but with no evidence against him, he was released. Dan, on the other hand, confessed to the murder, but later it was discovered that he had serious mental health problems and had been pressured into confessing. He eventually admitted that he hadn't actually done it. That lead went nowhere. Then another name surfaced, Dr. George Hodel. He was a well-known Hollywood doctor, connected to high society figures, but known for being strange. Some of his friends, after seeing Elizabeth's photo in the papers, told police, "We've seen that girl at George's house before." Detectives took that seriously. During the investigation, they found out that Elizabeth had indeed known George. They weren't officially in a relationship, but George was notorious for hosting bizarre, suspicious parties. Dug deeper, they discovered something horrifying. George had already been accused of raping his own 14-year-old daughter. The girl even became pregnant. That alone was enough to make him a serious suspect. The LAPD believed, it has to be him. We just need proof, a confession. But there was a problem. George was wealthy, influential, and well-connected. He knew powerful people, and he knew how to use them. Soon, it became clear that he was protecting himself from the police. So detectives made a bold decision, they would secretly surveil him. They bugged his house, installing hidden microphones to record everything he said. It was February 18, 1950. From that day on, investigators listened to every conversation, every phone call, every sound that came from inside his home. Late one evening, around 8:30 p.m., they heard a woman scream. 2 minutes later, another scream. And then, silence. No more voices, no movement. Just complete stillness. Police rushed to the house and searched it top to bottom, but found nothing. No body, no evidence. They left empty-handed. But the surveillance continued. Not long after, detectives overheard George on the phone saying something chilling. "I put a pillow over her face. I covered her with a blanket." And then, the most terrifying words of all. "I killed the Black Dahlia. They'll never be able to prove it. And now they can't talk to my secretary, because she's dead." Sure enough, his secretary had recently died from an apparent drug overdose. The timing made everything even more suspicious. Rumors began circulating inside the department, maybe George was paying people off, buying protection from the inside. By April 1950, detectives finally believed they had enough evidence to charge him. But before they could make the arrest, it was too late. George Hodel had fled the country, escaping to the Philippines. His son, Steve Hodel, who later became a police detective himself, was convinced that his father was guilty. He even believed George had killed not only Elizabeth Short but possibly other victims as well. Although George had left America, he occasionally returned in secret. According to Steve, strange events and unexplained deaths seemed to follow whenever his father came back. In 1950, a police department in North Carolina received a drawing in the mail. Underneath the sketch were the words, "The Dahlia killer looked like this man." There was no name, just a haunting face on paper. And so, the case remained unsolved. The police were exhausted, out of leads, out of evidence. And the killer, whoever he really was likely far away, living freely in some place no one would ever think to look. Police in North Carolina sent the sketch to the Los Angeles Police Department. And honestly, when you look at that drawing, there's something strange about it. It's not exactly smiling, but there's this odd, almost pleasant expression. Yet at the same time, it feels familiar. Because it looks a lot like George Hodel. Even though Elizabeth Short's brutal murder has never been officially solved, one suspect has always lingered in the LAPD's mind. They believed this man could have been a serial killer. All the signs, the behavior, the background, the psychological profile, pointed straight to him. But the trail didn't stop in Los Angeles. It led all the way to Cleveland, Ohio. Years before Elizabeth's death, a series of horrific murders had taken place there, gruesome, shocking crimes. So why does that matter? Because the victims in Cleveland were found in the exact same condition, cut cleanly in half, their bodies mutilated in ways eerily similar to Elizabeth Short's. Seemed to point to one man, the infamous Cleveland torso killer. And some investigators have long suspected that maybe, after the killings in Ohio stopped, the same man moved west, to California. And that the Black Dahlia might have been one of his final victims. Maybe he was never caught. Maybe he simply disappeared, blending into the crowd, free, unknown, while the world obsessed over his crimes. So, what do you think? Was it Dr. George Hodel, the twisted Hollywood doctor with dark secrets? Or was it the Cleveland torso killer, a serial murderer who vanished without a trace? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your theories. And if you'd like me to make a full video about the Cleveland torso killer, just drop a yes in the comments below. Love you all, take care of yourselves, and as always, see you in the next one.